Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, February 26th, and we are joined by two of our top journalists, Josh Molina, who writes for Newshawk, Delaney Smith from The Independent. Thank you both for coming. So first things first, since I've been complaining about the vaccine distribution for the last 3 months, I got my vaccine, and my first one. Mega kudos to Cottage. The logistics of the organization at Goleta Cottage are just outstanding. We just moved right through. It was faster than what I imagined the takeout line at Jack in the Box might be. But anyway, nice work. And our numbers are going down. We're at what, 16.9, Delaney, I think, cases per 100,000. Although we had 9 more deaths this week, bringing a total of 407. And there is some concern by the CDC that there's a plateau that's because of the variants. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We've had a little plateau in the last couple of days, but we'll see if it lasts. But the big story this week was in the schools Santa Barbara Unified prepared to return K through 6, most of them anyway, on March 1st. So it sounds like everybody's pretty optimistic about how things are going to go, Delaney. They feel well prepared.
Yeah, I mean, they had their safety plan approved ahead of time, of course, which is required by the state. And it's thorough. They have their plans in place. It's going to be an A/B model. So students are going to go every other day in person and alternating between in person and online. And then on Wednesdays, both cohorts will all be online together. And this plan has been in the works for months, and so it's time to finally implement it.
How many kids are in a cohort generally? Do we know?
That is a really good question. I don't know if you know the answer, Josh. My memory is telling me about 10 to 12, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah. And Josh, remind us again about what Goleta Union is doing in terms of returning.
Well, they're doubling down, and you can't really make the case, well, they're smaller because the elementary is about the same size as Santa Barbara. Goleta has 3,300. Santa Barbara's got about 3,700. They're going 5 days a week with 19-to-1 ratio. So they're gonna see if that works.
And what's their return date?
They have not set a date. They're tentatively targeting March 8th. That was what they talked about at their last board meeting. And probably it will be that. They didn't take an official vote on that though.
All right. And we talked the last time about Karen McBride and the teachers union, the Teachers Association, wanting to get all of the teachers who are gonna go back vaccinated in advance. And my understanding is there's, of the 1,500 people that they represent, there's about 150 who are 65 and over, and then another couple hundred teachers who are returning. So it seems like it's not an impossible task to get them vaccinated. Is there any progress on that we know of, Delaney, or are the teachers going back without vaccinations?
For the most part, unfortunately, most teachers will be going back without vaccinations. Yeah.
Ventura County.
Other districts.
Ventura County, what?
Sorry to interrupt. Ventura County is vaccinating their educators. So I don't know what the deal is in Santa Barbara.
So the public, in other words, the public health officials have used their latitude to do that and made a decision to do that, as has been done elsewhere around the state. Yeah. While ours continue to paint by numbers. We name no names. Most importantly, what about football? When's football coming back?
That is coming back. There's new sports guidance that the high contact sports, which is football, soccer, and water polo, those are going to be allowed with certain parameters, and I'm not sure what those are. I'm assuming you have to wear masks and all that, but those are going to be allowed again. Yeah.
All right. And the other thing I thought, Delaney, was interesting in your piece about Karen McBride's public comment, which got cut off, of course, after 2 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of other concerns that the teachers have above and beyond the vaccine. Obviously, the vaccine would be the most, but the way that classes are being shifted around and students and so on.
Yeah, so a lot of these teachers, they don't even have the new roster for their new classes, right? And this is happening next week.
So it's not just a one-to-one, the class that they've been teaching online.
Oh, no. For example, I spoke to an elementary school teacher in the district the other day, and she said she's losing more than half of her class. And now she's teaching a new grade level, and she's getting an additional 18 kids that she hasn't met and doesn't know anything about. So while she's trying to prepare for these new kids, she's still currently teaching right now online. So it really makes it difficult for them, the transition.
Wow. All right. And then the other big news out of the Santa Barbara School Board this week was they torpedoed an application for a new charter school, the Thoreau Community School, which focused on outdoor learning. What was the problem, Josh? How come they seemed like they had a lot of support, community support?
Yeah, so the Thoreau Community School would be based on outdoor learning, and they want to serve up to 100 students, about 80 of which would be from Santa Barbara Unified. And they started about 3 years ago with this project, and they've been working to submit the proposal. And they submitted it, and Santa Barbara Unified District staff, the cabinet, basically very sweepingly said, this is a terrible proposal. I mean, on every level, they said that it falls short. They don't think it's going to be successful. It's not financially sustainable. It's not going to serve the demographics of Santa Barbara Unified, and a whole host of problems. And so that was what happened at Tuesday, this meeting. They presented that. And it was a very interesting discussion because there were people from the public who called in support of Thoreau School and said, hey, we just got done doing a year of pandemic conditions where everybody was outside, and this whole school is based on outdoor learning. Can't we figure out a way to do this as opposed to just saying no? And Laura Capps was one of the ones who supported it. She has spoken about outdoor school being a good way to go during the pandemic as a way to accommodate students during COVID-19. Board President Kate Ford, she basically said, and I think she was the most pragmatic of it, she said, I like this team. I believe in this team. It's not perfect, but they can do it. Let's approve it with conditions. Let's make them go back and fix it. And let's move forward. And so they were in favor of it. The two other board members, Virginia Alvarez, Rose Munoz, were against it. And they sort of stuck to the talking points of the district and sort of said, this isn't going to work because it's not perfect on paper. Wendy Sims-Moten, the fifth board member, was absent. She had a personal situation. She didn't attend the meeting. And so it was 2-2. So 2-2 does not pass. And so essentially a denial.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Delaney, you wrote a long piece about this a couple of weeks ago. You spent some time with the people who had put it together. Did you feel like just, in general, that the sort of scathing analysis of the cabinet was well placed or not?
Parts of it were and parts of it weren't. I think that some of it had a good point, like they were talking about the governance. They had a really weird model for how the school was going to be run. But overall, it should have been approved with conditions. And one thing that's kind of interesting, I spoke to one of the founding members after the meeting, and she had told me that when she had initially gotten this list of findings for denial a few weeks prior to the Tuesday meeting, they had put together this 62-page response detailing everything that the district said, detailing their response back of how they're going to fix that or mitigate the issue. And none of that was ever mentioned during the meeting. It was almost as if staff and the board members hadn't even read through this response that was sent to them, because nothing, I read through it, nothing that was in it was mentioned during the meeting. So there's some issues with the whole process, really.
Yeah,
really,
kind of
I
like it
think.
was, and as a practical matter, just based on your coverage and Josh's story, it seemed to me like the sort of determinative issue for Rose and for Virginia might have been, they didn't have enough Latino outreach. They didn't have enough Latino students. That the demographics were off. Am I reading that right?
Well, definitely with Rose Munoz, Virginia Alvarez mentioned that, but she also mentioned the financial aspect of it. It's interesting because I think it goes back to that stronger narrative, and the school district, for some reason, and I've covered many school districts in the Bay Area here, the school district is very defensive, and they look at things as, and I don't want to say everybody, because obviously there's people who are not like that, but
You're talking about the staff.
the staff is very defensive. They almost see things as like us versus them when it comes to a lot of the community issues. And it feels as though they are not trying to seek a resolution and a solution. There's no reason why they can't say, let's work with you to make this happen. This is outdoor learning. One of the concerns was that they weren't going to be able to recruit enough Latinos to be part of this program. Well, you're the school district, you're going to approve a charter, you can help, you can do that. You can be part of the solution. Instead, you had them sort of saying, this isn't going to work. And I think it comes across as very much a sort of like an intellectual, we know better than you, even though the people who are supporting it are educators and they have doctorates and they do have expertise in this field. And so it becomes this collision course of who knows best. But Delaney is right. They should have approved it. This is not an obscure group putting together something, looking to get proposed for some alternative school. These are educators and parents, community activists who have put a lot into the pedagogy of how to make it work. And instead, they're like, no. It was unfortunate that it died 2-2. Now, they may win on appeal. I don't know, but that's definitely a harder process.
Let me ask, Delaney, first of all, we just have to hand it to Josh for getting the word pedagogy. And I mean, that's a very, very rare accomplishment.
That's a little jab at the cabinet, since they tend to use that word.
Yeah, they do. No, and that was, I think what Josh describes certainly was the culture under the previous superintendent. And I think we all had high hopes that was going to change somehow. Did you get any sense that Hilda Maldonado, going along with this? I imagine she's got a few other things on her mind at this point as well. Did she speak against it, or did she have any?
She really didn't have a lot to say. I mean, I'd assume that she's on staff side, because she is on staff side with this, but she didn't really speak much, actually.
And what's the appeal now that they can have?
So they can appeal to the County Board of Education. And when I talked to one of the founding members, she said that is definitely what they're considering because of the huge community support that they have. And if that didn't work, theoretically, they could even appeal to the State Board of Education.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the 25,000-foot view of this is, that charters versus the CTA versus the teachers union has been a huge issue statewide for, the last two state superintendent of schools campaigns were waged on that. Gavin Newsom beat Antonio Villaraigosa, who was running with a lot of support from charter schools. And one of the first things they passed when he became governor was to make it harder for charters. So it'll be interesting to see, because we just elected this new County Board of Education, and I have no idea where any of them are on anything. And so it'll be fascinating to see how that goes.
Can I add one thing? Since I just sort of want to keep pushing this narrative of transparency with the district, and they've hired this PR firm which is analyzing this show and every communication that
What?
goes out, and every story Delaney writes and I write. They scheduled this for 15 minutes, this appeal. And that time is the amount of time staff has. They can't factor in public comment, but it's kind of they're telegraphing and they're disrespecting the process when these people have put their lives work
3
into
years,
this thing,
right? They've been working
3
on
years.
this.
And on the agenda is 15 minutes. Like, anyone who's ever covered a meeting more than once knows that you can't do anything in 15 minutes, much less explain the pros and cons of a charter school proposal. So I think they need to do a better job of just being honest with the audience and devoting enough time to have these discussions. And there's just another thing with the narrative of the school district. It's just being,
Well, and also not listening to the community. I mean, what did you say? There were 50 people that spoke on behalf of it or something like that?
Between letters and out loud, yes.
So, and Laura's always got her ear out on that. So I don't know. And it sounds like Kate, had a very, as you say, Josh, pragmatic solution to it. Delaney, you were absent without leave last week, so we didn't get to talk about your learning loss story, which was really excellent, and people should go back and read it. Can you just kind of recap it, just kind of briefly? That this is the scope of the problem, and how people are going to how districts are approaching it.
Yeah. So what I found through my reporting, and obviously there's nuances to it, but for the most part, distance learning has been hard on the majority of children out there, elementary age children, and it's affecting their learning. And so I talked to 3 different school districts in this, and I started out with Carpinteria because they actually have already gone back in person since October. And speaking to those teachers, it's a night and day difference. Some of these kids came back to the classroom halfway through the school year, and they couldn't do the most basic stuff. In kindergarten, students couldn't even hold a pencil, let alone write their names, right? And they are halfway through the school year. So teachers have had to really work double time to try to make up for that and try to help these kids along. Summer school has been a plan for all districts that they're focusing on fixing that gap. And Santa Barbara Unified is building their plan now for summer school because these kids have lost some stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, and the achievement gap, which is a chronic issue.
And the achievement gap is definitely widened much more. And this is affecting all children, but it's affecting low-income children and children of color even more so, and making that achievement gap that already existed even wider.
Yeah. Well, the schools and the pandemic continue to be the big story, I think, and politically as well, because it's one of the drivers behind the recall effort against Prince Gavin, against Gavin Newsom, which I expect is going to qualify. Let's talk about some city hall stuff a little bit, Josh. So the council decided to extend the State Street Promenade for a year. They had a 6-month thing before them, but they extended it to a year. What made them change their mind?
Yeah, the staff proposal was 6 months to extend it. And I think a lot of the business community said, we're investing a lot into our infrastructure on State Street, and we want to be able to recoup that, and let's do it for at least a year. If you've been down there, you know that there's a lot of street furniture that's happening, and some people have spent a lot of time. Others have done what they can to get outdoor seating. So the thinking was, even though our numbers are down, we really don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic in terms of a variant or anything that's going to come up. We've been burned several times. Every time we think the pandemic's slowing down, something else happens. So they're sort of saying, let's just plan on this. And there's no sign that the governor is going to allow indoor dining anytime soon. So I think that was the thing, was let's just plan for this and let's extend it. And let's keep cars off State Street and let's allow outdoor dining. The thing that's interesting that's developing is that those people who are in that block, which is like 8 or 9 blocks, they're benefiting from this, but the people who are not are feeling left out. So that's sort of another dynamic that is brewing. We had Starbucks closing on the corner of State
Yeah.
and De La Guerra. You know, there's some feeling that there's starting to be some impact to other businesses because there's such a focus on some blocks. The 500, if you're on the 500 block of State Street, you're in the best possible scenario. But if you're on the 400 block, you still have cars going down right next to parklets, and that's not as fun of an experience for somebody who's dining outside.
And Jim Cannell, the grumpiest man in town, commercial real estate guy, says this pandemic has lots of legs on it beyond just the infection. So he wins the mixed metaphor comment of the week award. But so Delaney, so there was also some commentary about how it kind of just looks junked up down there. Have you? I mean, you go down there all the time. I mean, you're working down
Every day. Yeah.
at least for a while, huh? Moving? Are you?
Yeah. For 2 weeks left.
You have 2 weeks left. Yeah. So I mean, what's the what's the kind of atmosphere? Is it look crummy, or is it it's kind of does
Well, I mean, it's a combination. They've tried to make it look nice. Like a lot of these parklets are painted and they have cute little lights on them, and then all of the stop signs and stuff at each intersection are in these big potted succulents, and those are pretty. So I mean, it's not like they're not making an effort, but I mean, essentially, yeah, it's a street. So there's the street paint everywhere. You just have random crap kind of set down in the middle of it. It definitely looks like an interim promenade. It doesn't look finalized.
So what by extending it a year, what do they hope to accomplish in terms of the aesthetics of it? That people are gonna just put more money into their little things, or what?
Is that it, Josh?
Yeah. So they're hoping that people will say, well, let me try to make it look as nice as I can, because if this is only going to be around 6 months, why am I going to invest all of this to make it possible for people to want to come down here? So it's really business driven, and City Hall is trying to respond to the concerns and the needs of the businesses. So also, the other side of this is the Rob Daytons of the world. They love that the street is closed because it allows bicyclists and
More
pedestrians.
electric bikes, which
Yeah. So
I'm
they're going to
so
say,
pleased to see all of the electric bikes on the beach at Hendry's now, mowing people down.
Those have been so popular, the new electric bikes.
Have they?
Yeah. I almost every time I walk past them, all the racks are empty.
What are
the
they?
other thing is they're allowing outdoor live music outside. So that's a new thing that they've done. Whereas a lot of the live music entertainers have said we haven't been able to do anything during the pandemic. They are allowing them to perform outside. So that's something new that we'll be seeing with the promenade extension.
And I lost my thought. Anyway, okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Oh yeah, I was just going to ask you, what was the mayor saying about all this? The mayor who's up for a 5-year term?
The mayor is very supportive of business, Jerry. The mayor is very supportive of facilitating communication between business and City Hall, and she thinks this is the right step.
You must have been a flack at some point in your life. All right, and then the last thing, the Historic Landmarks Commission took a look at the proposed plan for De La Guerra Plaza. And being the Historic Landmarks Commission, it appeared they were fearful that somebody somewhere might be having fun, and they dumped all over it. What was their problem, Josh?
Well, it's quite fascinating because they've done this whole proposal for how to redo De La Guerra Plaza, and we're all familiar with De La Guerra Plaza. It's pretty run down. It doesn't get used to its capacity, and they come in there with an architect and this design, which has got splash pads and art nodes and a little art structure and an arcade, for people to walk through, and it looks really nice, and they want to flatten it out and make it even, and they want to eliminate cars. And so you're looking at the drawing, you're like, wow, this is amazing. This could happen downtown. Turns out that the news press is not participating at this point in any of the conversations.
Well, there's a shock.
They want to remove the parking, and there's parking there that their customers rely on. And so the HLC brought that up. They also brought up the fact that a lot of people the members of that board think that the splash pad is too contemporary. It's too modern.
Too much fun, yeah.
And they don't think it should be a focal point. So they went back from get rid of it to just have holes in the ground for water to spout out, but don't draw attention to it, and make it more historical. And of course, they named off 32 cities in Spain that, in Europe, that they would, want to be able to copy off of. So it's sort of interesting. I mean, I think as somebody with a 7-year-old, splash pad downtown sounds awesome. I don't know what the deal is.
Delaney, you could win a big journalism prize by just doing a piece on the demographics of the Historical Landmarks Commission, the Architectural Review Board, and a couple of the single family housing thing. I have a feeling it might not particularly align with those of the population of Santa Barbara, but what do I know? What are you working on for next time?
Oh, you'll like this one. I went to the drive-through clinic in Goleta, the one that you got vaccinated at.
You went to the vaccination clinic?
The drive-through one, the Goleta one, and the cottage one. I interviewed a few people, including Kate Ford, who was there volunteering that day. So I will have a story out about these vaccine volunteers and what their jobs consist of.
It was amazing. It really was. I mean, there were so many volunteers there doing so many different things at so many different points, and just, how they pulled that all together in a very short amount of time. It was really quite remarkable. And as I say, mega kudos. Josh, who's on the podcast?
Well, Jerry, I'm taking a break this weekend. As you know, I do the podcast on the side, so I'm going to try to spend some time with doing some other things. So I'll let you know. But if you haven't watched Mike Eliason, who's the latest on the podcast, you should. He does a great job talking about his career, his photography, his, he sets out and takes a photo every day, posts it on Instagram. And so it's sort of not like just let me take a photo of this. He's got a process. And as you know, people generally refer to him as best photojournalist in town. So,
Did you talk a lot about the circumstances under which he left the morning paper?
Jerry, my podcast is a one-man band, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I don't want to get sued. So we actually didn't talk about that at all. Zero. I'll leave that to you when you have.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. No, I mean, this whole De La Guerra Plaza thing. I mean, seriously, you're going to put this together and not kind of check that box off. I don't think so. It's not gonna work. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And you're frontline essential workers, so you ought to be getting a vaccine. I think. And if you need me to write a letter, I'll be glad to.
We're in Tier 1C.
Are you?
Yeah, media is.
Nice. So how many, and what tier are we in now?
Teachers and agricultural workers and all of them are 1B. So we're just one more after.
And what color are we in? What level? You're the only one that understands this. Are we in red or purple?
Oh, we're in purple. We're in purple.
And where do we want to go next? Orange? Red. Okay.
Red, and then orange, and then yellow.
It doesn't make any sense that red is good. Red should be there. Okay, thanks a lot.
Was it Delaney who said this? It's the Air Pollution Control District colors. That's why they do it.
I didn't know that. That wasn't me that said that, but interesting.
Maybe, I don't know. That's why they do the colors that way.
Wow.
Air quality.
Really?
Yeah.
Gee, you learn something new every day. You go to the ballpark and you see something you've never seen again. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks, Delaney. Thanks, Josh. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
On Newsmakers.
Bye.